What's going on, everybody? So we are back in Warframe trying to get some stuff done here. Gonna do a build video finally on the DRAKGOON. Took me a little while to get through the leveling on this, and some time to figure out how I like to have it modded. Now, what we got going on here in the background is I picked up a exterminate alert on Pluto, 35 to 38s infested. And I also decided to drop in some Valkyr because I haven't played Valkyr in a while, and I think that's a really great frame. So that's what you're going to see while we're talking about this in the back, talking about this build. Like I said, my apologies for taking so long to get it out, but I just wanted to make sure I had a build that I liked before I showed you guys. So you can probably at this point compare it to what you've done and see if there's any way to make it better or any of that stuff. But with that said, what we've got here is going to be, we're going to start off with what the basic stats of this thing were when they dropped it out. And the impact was 25, puncture is 25, slash was 200, accuracy of 1.4, fire rate of 0.8, critical was 1.5 times 10%. Effectively, I don't know, I think that's like 150% critical. Status chance is 10%, magazine was 7, reload is 2.3, and the trigger was a charge trigger. Now, I gotta be honest, based on this build that I did, it's good for charge, obviously, but I'm not one to charge, so I did a lot of damage on this build, as much straight damage as I could. Because as you will see a lot, yes, sometimes here in this video I do hold down for the charge, but I'm not one to hold the charge. I like to just click that trigger and get antsy sometimes. So I wanted to go with as much damage as I could, base damage, so that way when I'm shooting those damn things out everywhere, yeah, it's causing damage for everything. So where I'm at right now with my build, here we go. I got a 187 impact, 1309 puncture, 1496 slash, 2244 gas, 0.9 accuracy, which obviously accuracy went down, and I'll explain why. Fire rate still the same, critical still the same, status chances up to 16%, magazine still the same at 7, reload is 2.3, charge is the trigger still, and my conclave is at 205 on this weapon. So, like I said, I built this more on a heavy damage in the beginning. And obviously, when we first got the weapon, you knew it was good against the infested. It's good against all factions right now, the way I've got it. But at this point, it's weakest against Corpus. It's really good, obviously, against the infested with the gas and the heavy slash on it. But it's also really good in terms of puncture and slash for the Grineer, and not a lot with the impact for Corpus, but that's just due to limitations that I have in this build and how I have it set up. Now, I could forma this, and we'll get into that at the end, but for now, I want to show you where I started with it. So, first thing I did is I added an accelerated blast, maxed out. So this gives me a 60% fire rate increase and a 60% puncture damage increase. Okay. Obviously making it better for Grineer purposes, because in the beginning it just wasn't that great. As you saw in the first video I did, it wasn't that great against anything other than infested when I first got the weapon. Then I added a blaze mod. Okay, so now we're adding an extra 60% damage and a extra 60% fire damage. So I got my first part of my element right there on this weapon. Plus I built up my damage, so all impact, puncture, and slash get moved up with an extra 60% on the calculation. Then I added point blank with an extra 90% damage. So we're adding to impact, puncture, and slash on this. Okay. And that puts us at about 150% damage at this point. Okay. Then I decided to add in the Hell's Chamber, maxed out of course. So that's a 120% multi-shot. Okay, which is just basically, we're basically going to double our damage, more or less, because now we're shooting twice and we're guaranteed that second shot every single time. So we're effectively doubling what we've done at our 150s now up to about 300 base damage. A little over 300 base damage actually. Okay. And then here's the kicker. I went ahead and used a vicious spread mod and I maxed it out, rank 9 max, which gives me an extra 90% damage, but it also gives me 60% spread, which for this weapon, obviously I'm not too concerned with the spread, because if I'm not holding the trigger, it's going to shoot every which way, and it's going to start damaging enemies in all different directions. Okay, but when you're holding the trigger down, that 60% spread is actually not too bad, because it'll, even though it does shoot out, it does allow to be more of a controlled shotgun style. So you're shooting out a lot of what would be, heated pellets at this point. So that actually works out pretty well, even though, it's supposed to be a negative effect of a card. I think it's actually a positive effect on this build here, with just the way that it is set up. Excuse me. And then I still had some room left, but if you take our calculation, I'm sorry, our base damage, okay, our base core damage, so the blaze, point blank, and the vicious spread is going to give us a 240% increase in our base damage. Then I'm adding another 60% puncture damage on top of that. Okay, so now we're at our base without talking multi-shot. We're talking a 300% increase in damage. And then we're going to add our multiplier, our 120%. So when you add in the 120%, you're going to basically come out with another 360. So now you're talking a 660 base damage jump on the weapon, which is where the stats are, which is why my stats are, at that 187, 1309, 1496, and gas is at 2244 because of that 660% basic damage increase, more or less. And then finally, the final card that I added to this is going to actually be the Toxic Barrage card. So we're adding a 60% poison damage, which is how we're getting the gas combination, the fire and the poison, and a 60% additional status chance, which you can never go wrong with adding extra status chance. It's just my opinion. But so gas is going to actually, and this is where we're talking. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. This is where we're talking where the effect is. So if you're using a gas combination, you have a huge advantage in the infested side. 75% on the infested itself, the basic infested, it's the plus 50% on the flesh of the infested. It actually does have a small negative effect on the corpus, negative 25% on their flesh. It doesn't really matter much for the corpus. And it actually has a negative effect on the clone flesh of the Grineer. So that's going to refer to the humanoid Grineers and including the bosses. But the offset would be that huge puncture damage of the Grineer, and the increase in the impact damage and slash damage for corpus, and of course for the infested. The positive side of slash damage from the infested is insane. So that's why I went with it this way. Now, I've actually effectively still have 2 slots left in my build. So I'm going to probably reforma and add some more stuff in there. And when I do, I will make sure to eventually do another video, show you what else I added in there so you guys can see how much more damaging I made it. But with that said, that's it. That's the build. Try it out. Tell me what you think. Leave comments below. Please like the video. Comments, like I said. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. And I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching.
Another job well executed.